Is Blossoms by the Park the most value for money new launch in the ASEAN this year? Maybe, maybe not. Welcome back to the next episode of our Condo new launch reviews, where we peel away the hype of a particular launch to share with you guys our honest feedback. And for today, we're going to talk about the first of two one-off launches this year, Blossoms by the Park. You ready? Let's go! So this is actually going to be our second review in the one-off area. We did the review for one-off Eden 2 years back, and we have made some predictions in that video. Now let's see how we did. One interesting thing to note is that one-off Eden is one of the plots of land that was sold after the 2018 cooling measures,
with the developers still trying to figure out how to make money with the new measures and minimum average unit size, while concurrently clearing their inventory. They were understandably more cautious with the site attracting just 9 bidders.
Comparing this to the most recent Tanah Merah land sale, which attracted 15 bidders.
So with developers' inventory depleting rapidly, we expect to see a much higher number of bidders for the next 2 plots, which will inevitably lead to higher prices.
So the number of bidders came up from 9 to 10, not quite as significant as what we predicted it to be. But what did materialize was the increase in land costs, coming up from 1674 for one-off Eden to 1986 for Blossoms by the Park, a 19% increase. And interestingly enough, looking back at that video, there were some of the data that we have shared with you guys, and with data that we have today, I think it will be quite interesting to sort of compare them and see where we stand 2 years down the road. Now, if you look at the average PSF of the resale condos being sold, it stood at 1239 2 years back. Today is at $1458 PSF, a 18% increase. Interestingly enough, very close to the difference in the land cost. Now, what is a more significant increase? I think you must have seen it in the news also, would be the average PSF for rentals. It came up from $3.5 PSF to $6.75. $6.75, a 93% increase. In the essence of time, for this particular review, we are skipping past the more standard parts like the location and the project details, jumping straight into the more important parts like my thoughts on the floor plan, a deep dive into the demand and supply situation in the area with some of the potential exit strategies, how Blossoms is going to measure up against the competitors in the one-off area, before moving on to what you guys are here for, the 3 things you like and don't quite like about Blossoms, ending off with some of the alternatives that you guys can consider. Let's get right into it. I'm just going to very briefly touch on some of the project details and also some of the features that I like about the broader project as a whole. Okay, so Blossoms by the Park, we're going to have 275 units that will make it bigger, slightly bigger than one-off Eden that was coming in, I believe, at 165 units, right? We're going to have 4 restaurants within the development itself. Now, this on its own doesn't make it very unique, because it's something that's going to apply to all the 3 brothers, basically what I call them, these 3 projects in the one-off area that will launch within the last 3 years or so. For the project itself, it's all going to be concentrated into one tower with sort of a broad walk running smack through the middle, and this is because the entire One North area has been master planned by JTC. So there was an architect that came in to master plan the entire place, and they all have to fit within the master plan, some of the specifications of the master plan. And one of it was to have public plazas running through, and I think leading all the way to Buona Vista MRT, so you get a very seamless walk to Buona Vista MRT. Now, the downside of which is this very, I feel, somewhat awkward plaza that runs through and basically splits the development in half. So you have your blocks on one side and your facilities on the other. You are linked through with this quite narrow walkway lah. So the downside of which I feel is you're not going to have this grand feeling in terms of your seamless connection once you take your lift down and you can walk straight into the pool, right? You've got to walk across this pathways, a bridge of sorts across the public plaza in order to reach your facilities. Now the facilities on its own, I feel is not bad, okay? I quite like the whole vibe of it, like on the rise terrace, sloping downwards, and this standalone area for facilities over here. Now you can see it on the good side lah, which is that the facilities is a distance away from the residents, so all the units you won't really get much noise lah. But being in the One North area at night, you're not gonna get much noise anyway. So yeah. Another good thing is that it's situated beside a park, so you're gonna get actually plenty of greenery and sort of an extension of the facilities to this side, and it's all going to be connected, right? You just have to exit a gate over here. You don't even have to cross a road, right? You just walk out of this side gate and you go into this One North Park, which is, I feel, one of the plus points, I would say. It sort of acts as an extension of the facilities over here lah. All in all, I think a huge plus for rentals and for tenants, okay? So we're going to have some of the restaurants over here. Now, that is the one thing I perhaps don't quite like about developments in the One North area. While yes, it's convenient, the whole idea of having a restaurant below your condo, it's convenient. Somehow or other, when you go to the One North area, the developments, they feel more like service apartments than a home per se. And in the long term, there's going to be some downsides with regards to that, because it's not a place whereby families or people really will look to go and stay for own stay purposes lah. See, I give you an example. You take a look at the gym over here, the function room, the entertainment room. Doesn't it feel like a service apartment to you? But that aside, there's of course upsides to having a condo with facilities and amenities like that, considering One North isn't an area that has a lot of amenities to begin with lah. So taking a look at the development, right, again, all squeezed into one block. Now let's dive straight into the floor plans. I'm going to look first at the 1+ study. So for the 1+ study, coming in at 549 square feet. So now this is a decent size 1+ study. And I think perhaps one of the most interesting features would be probably one of the longest study areas you're going to find in any condos. Now this is super duper long. They've put in a bed here for you to visualize already, and this is already 2 meters, a standard length bed, right? And there's still going to be extra area, so it's almost 3 over meters, probably close to 4 meters. So now that's a really long study area. Okay, so as you enter, pretty standard open concept kitchen, dining with a Jack and Jill, bathroom, decent size master bedroom. So I would say pretty standard layouts lah for a 1+ study, other than the super long study area. Now for the 2-bedders, I'm going to jump over to this other presentation that has some measurements inside, but do note that these are approximate measurements, okay? So now the two bedders are going to come in at 6, 7, 8 square feet. Just a little bit on the small side, okay? So as we step in, it's going to be the pretty standard open concept kitchen. Now with the kitchen being tucked away nicely like that, you can potentially put in a sliding door over here to close it off lah, if you were to do heavy cooking. So there's no, one thing you notice with this layout would be there's no kings anywhere. Probably the only kink is over here, so if you need extra storage you can build it out this way, but it wouldn't be very deep. So I think what most people would do if they are being bought for own stay would to move the dining table out and probably have some sort of feature wall running down this way to help you with some storages. Now one thing to note is that the common bedrooms, right? All the common bedrooms now for all the unit types are going to come in at approximately 8 square meters. Now that is smaller than usual. Usually it's closer to 9 square meters lah. So now you might find that a little bit small, okay? But if you scroll down to see all of them all the way up to the 4 premium, right? The common bedrooms are, other than the junior master, the common bedrooms are all going to be 8 square meters. Moving on to the 2+ study. So coming in at 721 square feet, we're going to have 2 stacks of 2+ studies. Take a look at the layout as you enter the unit. Pretty standard open concept kitchen. Now one of the things to note for Blossoms by the Park, all units are all the way up to the 4 bedders, you're not going to get the washer and the fridge given to you, which is come at over 2000 PSF. I would feel at the very least they could have provided you with one of them. The last project that I can remember that didn't provide fridge and washers is Treasure at Tampines, or some of the ECs, but for fully private condos, right, Treasure at Tampines. But for that one, it was like 1200 square feet, 1200 to 1400 PSF, right? So the one they don't give fair enough, right? This is double the price and they don't give. Slightly disappointing, but oh wells. Again, we're going to have this super long study area coming in, quite standard portrait style living, dining, balcony. Do note that the walls cannot be hacked because this is prefabricated construction, being that the site has been sold via GLS. So you're not going to expect any natural ventilation, be it in the kitchen, bathrooms. Again, right, because it's only going to be one block, and so all the smaller units are going to be tucked in the middle, so you don't expect natural ventilation there. The master bedroom, now EL Developments, they do build pretty decent sized master bedrooms based on what I have seen in Park Rivera. So that's one good one plus points that I will see. But one of the things I don't quite like for EL Developments is the fact that from the walkway area onwards, it's going to be vinyl flooring. Most developers, they at least tile for you all the way to your front door, right? I have no idea why they do that, but it's a bit awkward. But you know what? Yeah, it is what it is. Now, moving on to perhaps the layout that I'm most excited about, the 3-bedroom dual key. Now, first things first, it's going to come in at 915 square feet. So that's super well sized for a 3-bedroom dual key. Okay, so this is a 3-bed, 2-bath. You're going to get a studio apartment on one side and a 2-bed, 1-bath on another. So this is going to be super good in terms of yield, especially it being located in an area like One North. Okay, let's dive straight into the layouts. Probably the only one gripe I have with regards to the layout is the size of the foyer area. Coming in at 5 square meters, I think is a little bit too big for my liking. But other than that, okay, as you take a left, we're going to start off first with the studio. pretty standard in that sense. You're gonna have a nice laundry area as you step in. I think that's quite smart. As you move in, you're gonna have the kitchenette, which I think is a good distance, 1.8 meters. Allowing you to have a kitchenette, or if you want a dedicated dining area. It's going to be an open concept kitchen, that goes without saying. As you walk a bit further up, you're going to be able to put in a queen size bed. But I think a king size bed will fit as well, unless you need side tables. I would have liked to see a balcony over here. So if you're going to have a balcony over here, I think the rental is going to be way above $3,000. But as of now, I'm going to put an estimated rental of about $3,000 for this studio unit over here. And the reason why I put that number is, if we look at the supply of one-bedders or studio apartments in the One North area, the cheapest one you're going to find right now is going to be $3,600. That being said, it's going to be 600 square feet. So I'm going to be a bit more conservative and just going to put that at $3,000, okay? Coming back to it, so now as we move into the two-bedder, so do note because again, right, this is a GLS site, meaning all the walls will be prefabricated. That also means that this wall that separates the studio from the 2-bed 1-bath cannot be hacked, so you cannot basically merge this and utilize this as a big 2-bed 2-bath if you would like to. But that said, I think most people looking at it are buying for investment. You know, if you are just a young couple, you can stay on this side, on the right side, and gain a really good rental from the studio side. So I think this is perhaps my favorite layout in the whole project. So as we step in, open concept kitchen, but I like it that it's quite wide over here. If you notice, so a lot of area to move around, and as you step in, you can feel that the space is pretty decent. I think this may be not too far away in terms of width. From the actual a 3-bedder is 2.8 meters, the full 3-bedder, but the other 2-bedder, as a matter of fact, the 3-bedder is 2.8 meter width. The 2-bedder is also, the 2-bedder is 2.5 meter width over here, the 2+ study. So as we come over here to the 3 dual keys, 2.6 meters, that is not too bad considering it's one side of a dual key unit. So we have a balcony over here, the master bedroom, 10 square meters, quite decent. One of the things I like is the master bedroom bath is going to be naturally ventilated. The one thing to take note of would be the fact that the bedroom at the back is going to have a really small window, so you're not going to get much natural light coming into this side. But that said, I'm going to put an estimated rental of about $4,500 for that particular unit, that 2-bed 1-bath on this side, considering the fact that the cheapest 2-bedder there in One North right now is coming at $5,008. So I'm going to estimate the rental yield to be above 4% for the 3-bedroom dual key. Next up, the 3 Premium, coming in at 1044 square feet. Again, coming in, so now this is going to be a corner unit, so you will have natural ventilation in the kitchen and also in the toilets. So as you step in, pretty good size kitchen. So now in this in the era moving forward, right, because once you have 3 Premium and above, you're going to have a bomb shelter within the unit. So with that, one of the good things that is going to come out of it, right, while annoying in a way, one of the good things that's going to come out of it is the fact that you're going to get larger size kitchens moving forward, okay? So now the kitchen is going to be a good size. Again, they are just indicating the washer and fridge area for you, but not going to give that to you. As you step in, glass panel to help give the impression that the house, right, so you can visually see that the house is bigger. So again, pretty standard on that note. Portrait style, dining, living, balcony. The balcony, good size, not too big, not too small. Walkway, pretty standard, the 2-bedroom sizes can fit in a queen size bed, but that's about it. The master bedroom, good size, right? Something very common with EL developments. And what I do like is this extra window over here. So now that's going to help bring in some natural light and also to allow for ventilation coming in this way. Now with the units mostly north-south facing, you're going to get ventilation on the north-south anyway, but I always like it when they have this extra window over here in the master. It helps a lot, right? Because as you walk in, if you can see a window over there, some natural light coming in at you. So more so the benefits with the natural light as opposed to the ventilation, because this would be facing somewhat west. Next up, the 4-bedders. So the 4-bedders are going to measure in at 1302 square feet. So as you step into the unit, you're gonna have a dry kitchen with a wet kitchen. They named it an Asian kitchen. I don't know why. So on this side of the house, the one thing you perhaps want to note is that there's not going to be a dedicated utility room, right? They have assumed that you're going to use the household shelter as a utility lah. The yard being situated here is a little bit odd because it's a bit far from the window over here. That's where you're supposed to, dry your clothes or put your clothes out to dry. Like it's a bit of a distance here, so that's a bit awkward. But other than that, the kitchen is not terribly big. I think this may be a bit of an issue with the bigger families, especially those that cook often, because if you look at this, you add together is about 10 square meters. If you go to the three bedroom, right, it's 12 square meters. So it's actually the 4-bedroom kitchen, dry and wet combined. It's going to be smaller than the 3-bedroom. Okay, so now that's something to note. Okay, we have one of my favorite type, which is the landscape style living dining area. That's going to give us about 5.2 meters wall to wall. That's pretty good. A balcony that runs the entire length. Decent size, 9 square meters. I like it that we have one toilet over here to serve 2, and then also the junior master one. I would have hoped that maybe they could have done a Jack and Jill door for this one, so that multiple usage. Like if this one is Jack and Jill and you buy this 4-bedder for investment, that would have been quite good lah. At least you can market it as 3 bedrooms sharing 2 toilets. If not, now this is going to be solely a junior master. But for junior master, the size of 7 square meters is super duper small. Yeah, so that's one thing that I perhaps don't quite like. The toilet being this kind of length, it's also a little bit odd to me. 8 square meter common. Bedrooms also not the biggest size, right? One saving grace is the master bedroom is good. It's a good size with a window over here that I did mention earlier I do like. And lastly, the 4-bedroom premium that's going to come in at 1,507 square feet. So now this is a good size unit, the biggest unit you're going to find in Blossoms. Now, the one thing that you probably do have to note is that even if you buy at this size, number one, there's still not going to be any marble provided. Okay, as a matter of fact, you're not going to find marble anywhere in any of the units. Okay, secondly, you will also still not find the washer and the fridge. Okay, so now with that, now let's come into the floor plan. So this is quite unique, quite special. Okay, so follow me. We're gonna step into the unit. A really good size entrance foyer over here. The naysayers will say that's wasted space, but it depends on how you want to utilize it lah. Now, funny thing, let's not say funny lah. The one interesting thing is this is where you're gonna find your dining area. So if you measure the full length over here, that's 7 meters. So that's super duper long, but it's not very wide. It's just 2.9 meters. So you're not gonna be able to have a really long or really big size dining table that, you know, if you do have 8,500 square feet unit, you might want to have. Okay, so as you walk in over here, you're going to reach your living room. Now, then orientating the sofa like that and then having the TV here is also a little bit weird to me, because then you leave a lot of wasted space here for the walkway area. Okay, again, I feel the orientation of the dry kitchen could have been better. Again, I see here as somewhat of a wasted space. So how they've orientated the furniture like that, number one weird thing is that you have to walk all the way around to your dining table. Number two, a lot of walkway space. So while if you look at it like that, as a whole, it's a really good size. There's a lot of space that you wouldn't really be able to fit anything because you have to walk around it. Okay. Kitchen, 7 square meters for the wet and 5 square meters for the dry, adding up to about 12. Same size as the 3-bedroom. Now, I think that is still quite okay, right? A household shelter over here. Again, no standalone utility room, so they're gonna assume that you will use this as both the utility as the household shelter, and if you need, as a helper's room. Okay, stepping inside. So now on this side of the house is quite similar to the 4-bedder with our narrow toilets, but of course a much bigger size, much better size, 9 square meter junior master bedroom. So the balcony is now going to be tucked away on this side, and it's going to be accessible via a swing door. Now, I don't know how usable this is going to be, because even if you zip track this area, unless you zip track it out and you basically extend your bedrooms out, which I think some people may do, I would have personally preferred the balconies to be over here and act as an extension of the living room space. But you know what? This is quite unique, and it really depends on how the person or how the buyer want to utilize the space. Okay, if they utilize it well and sort of acts as an extension out from the bedrooms, you know, I think it will be pretty nice, because the bedrooms are, after all, 8 square meters, a little bit on the small side. Let's take a look at the demand and supply situation over in the One North area, and hopefully that will help you guys be able to visualize some of the possible exit strategies. Now, how do we do that? We take a look at the past transacted data to understand demand, and we take a look at Property Guru to understand supply, and let's see what we can derive from all that data. We're going to take a look at the 4 completed properties in One North, starting first off with the youngest one, the Rochester Residences. Jumping straight into the data, let's take a look. Now, we are looking at the past transacted data. So one of the first things that jump out to me would be in 2023 alone, there's 3 transactions, out of which they are all 2-bedders. So now, what are some of the things that I look at? Okay, first and foremost, right, looking at the size. Now, you notice that this size is twice as big as what we're gonna see at Blossom. Now, what does that mean? Even though the PSF is quite low, okay, the quantums come up to be 1.8 million, 2 million. Now, that tells me that there's demand in that area that's ready to pay up to 2 million, 1.8 to 2 million dollars for a 2-bedder over there. Now, how does the 2-bedder supply look like? So we can see over here, we have 48 listings available. A lot of them seem to be of the 1-bedders. So now, for the 2-bedders, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right, with some duplicates here and there, ranging at about $2.1 million, not too far away from the listed or the transacted prices, right? It's a bit higher lah. So now, that tells me that the supply is going to be well absorbed, okay, and that there's demand for it. Now then you want to take a look at what's the gap between this quantum and the expected entry quantums for the two bidders over at Blossoms. Okay, next up we're going to take a look at the three bidders. Okay, I'm skipping past the one bidders because we don't see any one bidder transactions. I'm going to end off with the one bidders, right? But we're going to see the three bidders. They're already hitting $2.7 million. Not many three bidders. Supply, you're going to notice, okay, 2.8 million, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Not that many considering the size of the development, and the asking prices are quite a bit higher than the past transacted prices. So that also tells me, right, that gives me confidence that there's good absorption rates for three bidders at quantums of 2.6, 2.7, even up to 3 million, but I believe this is a very high floor unit. This particular unit, the PSF is super duper high. Okay, and then we're gonna earn a 4-bedroom, not a lot lah, right? So it's quite an outlier, and then there's no supply as we have seen. So for the one bidder, that's the one thing that we may need to pay a little bit of attention to, especially if you're looking to buy the 1+ study over at One North as a quantum entry kind of thing. One thing you want to note is that there is quite a fair bit of supply, and there hasn't been any transactions, right, since November last year at 1.44 million. The last one was at 1.178 million. So these are like the absorption rates, the kind of prices over there, 1.4, 1.5. Perhaps not too far off from the quantums that Blossoms are going to launch at, right? But you want to take a look then at the supply, right? We do see quite a fair number of units that seem to be, you know, somewhat stuck, not being able to sell, because when you see this number of listings and no transactions, that means that the demand probably isn't quite there. Moving on to the next youngest development, One North Residences. Again, jumping straight into the past transacted prices. So over here, we do see a higher take-up rate of one bidders, right? As you can see, one bidders, right? And the absorption rate, seems to me like the absorption rate, right? The demand for the one bidders at sub $1 million is quite healthy, okay? Because you see over here, February one transactions. This one I think might be a loft unit, hence the size differential, even though it's still listed as a one bidder, right? If not, you do see quite a healthy number of one bidders. And then if we jump over to Property Guru to look at the supply, the fact that the listings were last refreshed quite a while ago, I would assume that they are sold, probably, okay, and also because the gap between the listed prices and the transacted prices are not too far off, so I'm quite sure that quite a couple of these units may have been sold last refresh 3 hours ago. That one maybe not so much, again, but I kind of think that it's because the quantums start to move above 1 million. So now there's something again, right, reinforcing our takeaway from the Rochester Residences, being that 1-bedroom absorption rates above $1 million is quite slow. Below $1 million, very, very healthy. Okay, now two bidders. Okay, two bidders on the other hand, over at One North, we don't see that many transactions. Again, what you want to pay attention to is the sizing, right? All coming in at above 1,000 square feet. Quantums entry at 1.8, 1.5, 1.6. On the supply side, two bidders, not that many. Okay. Two bidders. So you see the two bidders are priced at 1.8, 1.9, last transacted about 1.8. So not too far off, but not a lot of supply. So now this also reinforces our takeaway from Rochester, being that the size difference between, so it's that whole investment thesis that we have been talking about the entire part of this year, which is the new versus the old supply. So now the old supply, the two bedders, very, very big in size. So Blossoms coming in with two bedders at 600 plus square feet, 700 square feet, entering at 1.49 to 1.58 mil for the 2 plus, up to the 2 plus study. I think that's a really good quantum. There's a good gap between there. You know, in the resale market, people are already paying 1.8, 1.9 million dollars for two bedders in the area. You end at about 1.5. Pretty decent gap. Okay, now for the three bedders over here, very, very big in size, 1,300 square feet, already being absorbed at 2.1 million, 2.2 million. So now this one, the gap between these quantums and the entry price for the three bedders at Blossoms now, then this one, the gap is not that big. Okay, but then in the supply side, there's not that much supply in the market lah, and their supply are about 2.4, 2.6 million. So on the investment side, on the gap side, right, that gap, I don't really see it as much in the three bedders. Now moving on to some of the older developments, Heritage View and Dover Park View. So Heritage View TOP in the year 2000, so it's about 23 years old already. Dover Park View 1997, so 26 years old. Okay, now if you just look at the transacted data over here, you may be a bit concerned for a couple of reasons, right? Number one, if you look at Heritage View, the three bedder size, it's actually smaller than what we may potentially, about the same lah, right, as what we can potentially get over at Blossoms. So now we don't really have that new supply versus old supply thing working for us, and you know that may lead to some concern. Okay, now, but if you look at so now you have to look at it from two sides. Okay, we also need to see the supply side. Okay, so over in the supply side, one good thing if you notice for both Heritage View and Dover Park View, the Heritage View just 12 listings, Dover Park View just 13 listings. I think that is quite a good sign, meaning that the supply is well absorbed, right? As a function of the kind of transactions that we see, actually really, really healthy despite their age. Okay, very, very healthy numbers of transactions despite their age. Okay, so now with that conclusion, okay, would Heritage View and Dover Park View pose a big challenge to your potential exit for Blossoms? My answer is no. Okay, the reason being that number one, they are quite a fair bit older. The market that you will be catering to will be somewhat different. You will, your bigger competition will, I believe, come from One North, from the Rochester, and also of course from One North Eden, and also the next launch that's going to come up later down the road that's going to be beside you. I believe it's by Kingsford. Okay, so it's going to be very, very different lah. Furthermore, by the time Blossoms TOP is going to be 5 years later, 4 to 5 years later, these units will be quite a bit older. But another interesting takeaway that I noticed from Heritage View and Dover Park View is I want to utilize this as sort of a case study as well, for the traditional, or for the I would say a myth that the lease decay for 99 years developments. Because if you look at Heritage View, their price movements over the last couple of years has been very, very healthy. Similarly with Dover Park View, very, very healthy, and that is even on the upward trend. I mean, you want to say it's because of COVID and whatnot. I don't think so. What I think has happened in this area is because they are experiencing somewhat of a spillover demand from District 5, okay, because we are located in District 5. District 5, the supply is not very, very high. A lot of the other units are located in Clementi, and actually Clementi, being a metro town, don't really have a lot of condos, and their condo prices have really shot up over the last couple of years, driving some demand over into these areas, which is why you see information like that, okay, look at the column for purchaser address, right? We see the most recent transactions for three bidders: Heritage, View, HDB, 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 HDB. Quite a fair bit. I would go to the extent to say it's probably a 50-50 split in the more recent transactions, okay? But as a function of the entire development, yeah, you see over here it's about 50-50, okay? Over at Dover Park View, you can see, right? Purchaser address, more recently, actually a lot of HDB purchases. So now that tells me that a lot of the HDB upgraders somewhat priced out of the Clementi areas and then spilling over the demand into Dover Park View, Heritage View, these areas still considered District 15, and they are entering on a quantum basis. Now, as a final data point to sort of debunk this whole myth that older 99-year developments are uninvestable, is to take a look at some of the recent transactions, profitable transactions over at Heritage View and Dover Park View. So we see over at Heritage View, someone buying in 2016, selling in 2023, making $500,000, right, $600,000, buying in 2019, selling in 2023, making $448,000. But what's more impressive is the percentage annualized return, 6% and 7.9%. Now these are percentages that will beat out some of the new launches, okay? And on top of that, if they had put it out on rental, that annualized return is even higher. Okay, Dover Park View, we also have examples bought in 2019, sold 2022, making, even though what might not look like a lot, right? $255,000 again, right? 6.7% annualized return. So now these are numbers that are quite similar to new launches, plus rental collected. So now, this is one of the alternatives that I was talking about that you can potentially consider. It's one of the other investment theses that we have adopted this year, right, considering all the overall quantum price increments, and also something that we noticed recently, right, being that buyers are sort of priced out of the market with regards to the newer developments, and then there's sort of a backflow of demand into some of these older developments, and buyers being more willing to accept a depreciating 99-year lease simply because of her affordability issue. But that requires very, very strong understanding of where the demand is at for a particular area, where the supply is at for a particular area. So this is not an easy investment thesis to execute. Right now, if that sounds interesting to you, feel free to drop us a text and we'll be happy to speak to you more about this. So what's my conclusion after taking a look at the whole demand and supply situation over at One North is that, number one, I may avoid the 1+ study units over at Blossoms because number one, the one bidder units are somewhat stuck over at One North. Okay, we don't see the absorption rate being very well, right? There's a lot of supply over there and we don't really see a lot of transactions. Number two, the two bidders over at Heritage View and Dover Park View are very, very similar in price. So even though they are older, the fact that they offer 2 bedrooms, they open up the potential buyer pool significantly, and we do see very healthy transactions of 2 bidders over at Heritage View and Dover Park View. So I believe that there's good demand over there that will challenge your potential exit over at for the 1+ studies over at Blossoms. Okay, now for the 2 bidders over at Blossoms, I'm more comfortable with them basically because there's a significant price gap between what is currently being asked and transacted at over at Rochester and One North. You're entering at significantly lower price, 1.49 million, 1.58 million. This is actually the same price as the units over at the 2 bidders over at Heritage View and Dover Park View. So now you're going to have your own market for people that want something a bit newer, don't mind it being a bit smaller. So the 2 bidder, I'm quite confident, and I quite like it. For the 3 bidders, right, the 3-bedroom dual key, if you are investor looking to, if you are a young couple, or if you are empty nesters looking to downgrade, I think it's an excellent option coming in at just slightly over $2 million. You are expected to be above 4% if you enter at about $2.1 million. Okay. Now the 3-bedroom premium, if you can enter in at about 2.3, which is whatever they have shared with us, I think that's still quite a good entry price considering transactions have hit 2.7 million. We have seen that over at Rochester, right? Acceptance rate of almost up to 2.7 million for 3-bedders over there. I think that's still quite okay, right? So 4-bedders generally in that area very, very low in supply, so not a big concern to me. If you want to enter as an investor or owner occupier, I think that's perfectly fine. If you want to look at it, the quantums over at 2.9 million, we have seen 3-bedders already being transacted at the Rochester around that prices as well. Now, moving on to the 3 things we like and don't quite like about Blossoms by the Park. Starting first off with the 3 things we like, and on point number 1, it is the location. Now I'm talking about its location as compared to its competitors in the One North area. So out of the 4 existing ones, plus One North Eden, plus the upcoming other launch by Kingsford, right? We will be the second closest one to the MRT, losing out only to the Rochester residences. Okay, I do also like how the entire development has been built up, being flanked like by a park, and also with the whole Rise Terrace right beside the swimming pool. Okay, so on top of that, right, the One North area has perhaps the highest ratio of jobs to condos anywhere in Singapore, and on top of the fact is that the entire area is master plan governed, planned by JTC, whose sole job is to bring jobs into Singapore. Now this compared to, let's say, another area in Singapore that perhaps maybe only has like individually managed office buildings and whatnot, so the whole area is not as well planned out as One North. Okay. Another thing is that One North is already an established area, and what do I mean by that? Okay, a lot of the other developments over in the One North area is playing a lot into the Greater Southern Waterfront transformation, and they are pricing those prices in. Now, in One North, it's already established, the jobs are already there, we see that from the data and everything, so you are not paying extra for transformation that, you know, may not happen. I mean, it most likely will happen, but it will definitely take time. Now, on top of that, also looking at the data, right, in the last 6 months, there have been on average 44 rental transactions per month, and with only 128 units available for rent. These are the kind of numbers we don't really see anywhere else, right? And based on this kind of numbers, I'm very, very certain the inventory for rentals will be snapped up very, very quickly. So on face value, this location ticks all the boxes for investors. But then again, it's very, very important that you must be able to visualize your exit. And on that, I hope my previous section on demand and supply dynamics for the area, price gap differentials, will help you visualize that. And an additional bonus for location is the fact that we are within 1 km of Fairfield Methodist, and that is actually one of the top 20 primary schools in Singapore, ranked by this website. Point number 2, entry prices. I'm going to break this point on entry prices down into 2 parts. Number 1, how its entry price compares to other similar newish condominiums around the area in District 5, Holland Village, Commonwealth, thereabouts, okay? And number 2, its entry price as compared to other new launches, especially in the OCR. Now let's first start off with what are the prices we expect the developers to launch at, right? I'm going to put that down over here. So we do see 2-bedders coming in at 2,000, right? Expecting some to start from as low as 2,200 PSF plus minus, right? So with that, and considering the developer's land purchase price, that's not a lot of profit margins. And why is that? So I think they are somewhat probably concerned about the fact that they have bought the land more expensive than their neighboring plot, the one that is being bought by Kingsford, which is why I think they rushed to launch it first and absorb in and take in and sell the units first lah, and try to front run the folks over at Kingsford. Now let's take a look at how the entry price for Blossoms by the Park compare to some of the other newish developments in the vicinity. So I put them down into a table. We have over here Park Clementes, Avenue South, both of which are still under construction, together with One Holland Village that's also under construction, all of which are 99-year developments. Okay, so some of those has already TOP, Margaretville, Sterling Residences and Atra, all of which have only recently TOP'd. And I've ranked them based on the lowest to highest average PSF. So we see Park Clementes averaging 1,008 all the way up to One Holland Village that is basically just one MRT stop away from Blossoms by the Park. They are averaging 2,900 PSF, which is a good and significant gap from One North and from Blossoms by the Park. But that being said, Holland Village does have its own unique charm. There's a much stronger organic demand over there, in my opinion, as compared to what we have over at One North, right? So not the most accurate, or I wouldn't really use that as sort of a target exit PSF for Blossoms by the Park. Of course, if you can hit it, that's great, right? I think probably a fairer comparison would be maybe someone like Atra that has already TOP'd, Sterling Residences, Margaretville not being that close to MRT as well, averaging out already to 2,100, right? Avenue South not yet TOP 2,000. So with this kind of PSFs, if you are able to enter Blossoms by the Park at 2,002, I don't think it is very high. I actually do feel that that is quite fair. Of course, once you hit 2,004, then it starts to be a little bit trickier to sort of visualize the exit, because I'm very comfortable if you exit at PSFs that's already being done in the resale market. Next up, let's see how the expected entry price for Blossoms by the Park measure up to the OCR new launches. And I'm gonna look at Sinaka Residences and Lentor Modern. Okay, so Sinaka is gonna average into 2,000, almost already 2,100 PSF, Lentor Modern 2,100 PSF as well. So with this kind of average PSFs over in the OCR, and if we can enter, let's say at less than 10% differential from that for Blossoms by the Park, I do feel that that is quite a safe entry price. Again, right, I feel like personally below 2,400 should be relatively safe, relatively good. On top of that, right, I feel Blossoms by the Park have an edge over the launches that I've shown over here, being the fact that the supply in the area, there's some differential in terms of the supply in the area, the sizes, the price quantums. Okay, for Sinaka, I feel there's a lot of very similarly sized units in the resale market as compared to whatever you are entering into. So when you exit, there's actually a lot of competition there. We do not have the whole new versus old supply dynamics working for you. Point number 3 on what we like about Blossoms by the Park: the sheer lack of supply in District 5. Let's take a look at the map to see what I mean. Okay, so here we are near to Buona Vista MRT. Now, if you look over here, you notice that there's actually not a lot of residential plots available. Yes, we do have here Blossoms by the Park, we have the Rochester, we count out to be about 6 condominiums serving the whole One North area. You can't really go, right, as looking at supply, right, and looking at similarly priced supply, going north really isn't that much of a viable or a competing, a like-for-like competitor in terms of supply because they are much more expensive, like we have seen already in the previous point. One Holland Village, almost 3,000 PSF. Moving further down towards Commonwealth, Queenstown, that area also quite a fair bit more expensive. So we can only go left. In the Dover area, very little supply. As a matter of fact, most of the supply are quite old and also quite large. If you go towards the Pandan Valley area already, the Holland Grove, Mount Sinai area, the supply is very big in terms of size, so quantums are big. So again, right, they don't really offer much in terms of alternatives, right? Then once we hit Clementi being a very mature town, but also don't have a lot of condominiums, just a handful of it. So with all of this and with the sheer demand that Clementi District 5 as an area commands, I feel there's a very good demand and supply imbalance in that area, probably making it quite decent in terms of long-term exit. And one of the data points to back up what I said is the fact that Heritage View and Dover Park View condos that are 20 over years old, that traditionally you have thought prices may taper off, seeing a real decent pickup in prices over the last couple of years, right? The reason why older 99-year developments can command this kind of prices and can see this kind of volume of transactions is proof that the demand in the area outstrips the supply. If you found this review useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as will help out the channel a ton, as well as give me and Elizabeth a little bit of extra motivation to continue doing videos like that. Now back to the video. Now, on to the 3 things we don't quite like about Blossoms by the Park. Point number 1, the size of the development. Now, for those of you who follow us, you would know that this is our number 1 pet peeve when reviewing condos. And I'm going to boil this point down to 2 different reasons. Reason number 1, right, the lack of units at launch may impact the ability of the developers to stage prices up, especially if the sell-through rate is high. Point number 2, right? In the resale market, a lack of number of units may slow down the rate of increase of prices, then slowing down your ability to profit from the particular development. Okay, now let's take a look at the case study and some of the data. I'm going to utilize perhaps one of the best case studies possible, One of Eden. Relatively close in age and basically right beside one another. So One of Eden, we have 165 units. Okay, so they sold through very quickly and quite well. As a matter of fact, you take a look at this, right? I've just put out the 3 bidders as I compare through the different developments. Okay, so most of them were sold basically on day 1, and you see over here we range from 1,008 to 2,000 PSF, and then they sold sporadically through the span of the next year. But notice that there was not much in terms of the staging, right? The last few units sold were still at the 2,000 plus PSF. So now what does that mean for the owners that bought at day 1? They really then have to depend on the resale market to sort of pull the prices up, right? The developer didn't stage the price up much for them. Now, let's take a look at the other case studies where developer staging did happen. Okay, so here we have a fellow neighbor in District 5, Park Clementis. Okay, so Park Clementis is much bigger development, 1,450 units. So now look at the chart over here. So this is the 3 bidder, like for like. Okay, so we started off with a range of about 1,000 at launch, right? About 1,005 to 1,007 PSF, and today the developers are selling the balance 3 bidders at close to 2,000 PSF. That's a real significant amount of staging done now. So now with developers having staged up like that, a lot of the owners that bought in day 1 are just simply exiting solely based on how the developers have staged the price up, right? They don't even have to sell at what the developers are selling at. They can price it a bit lower and still yield significant profits, not having to depend on the resale market at all. Okay, Another one I'm gonna refer you guys to would be the Florence Residence, also a good size development. So also notice over here at launch, it was 1,200 to 1,500 PSF, and the developer sold the last couple of units at 1,700 PSF. Quite a fair bit of staging done on that note. Point number 2 on what we don't quite like about Blossoms by the Park: the lack of organic demand. So what do I mean by that? Number 1, if you ask around, you don't really hear people telling you that they want to go and stay in one-off. And this is backed up by actual data. So interestingly, 2 years back, when we were doing the review on one-off Eden, we actually tallied up the purchases of all the 4 condos that we were talking about, the 4 resale condos that we were talking about, okay, the percentages of purchases with HDB addresses and the percentages of purchases with private addresses. And interestingly, the numbers have actually fallen for percentages of buyers with HDB addresses. Now, while this may not be 100% accurate, I like to think of it in this way, okay? Purchases with HDB addresses, there's a higher chance that they may be owner-occupiers, okay? And purchases with private addresses, while they may be upgraders from private to private, there's a higher chance that they may be investors, okay? And then this brings me to my whole theory about investors versus owner-occupiers. I've put that up into a spreadsheet, and I've talked about this before. But basically, in conclusion, right, you ideally do not want to be a owner-occupier in an investor area, because investors have reducing break-even prices as the tenant starts paying off the rentals for them. Okay, if you're an investor in an investor area, right, that's not too bad. Okay, but then of course you don't really have that edge. That edge comes with being an investor in an owner-occupied area. Then all your neighbors have an increasing break-even, while you have a reducing break-even. So that gives you a very strong edge. So now this area over in One North, because it ticks all the boxes as a good area for investment, low vacancy rates, right? In the traditional sense, is excellent for investment near to MRT and whatnot, job hubs and everything. But it just doesn't give you that edge of being an investor in an owner-occupied area that you will get in an area with high and strong organic demand. On top of that, being an area with high organic, strong upgrader demand, there's also a likelihood that you will exit to owner-occupiers. Now, question is, who will pay you more for your property? Will it be an investor, or would it be a owner-occupier looking for own stay? And now the last point on what we don't quite like about Blossoms by the Park: the lack of future supply. Now, you must be thinking, hold on a minute, why is that a bad thing? Allow me to explain. Now, I'm building on from the previous point on the lack of organic demand. Now, the attention that is now flowing into the One North area is very much due to the fact that there's going to be a new launch over there, right? In the absence of which, to be honest, you don't really hear people talking about the One North area. So with that, without a new launch coming in anytime soon, especially after the Kingsford launch, so visualize this: once you hit your TOP and you want to look to sell it, you couple the previous 2 points on what I mentioned with the lack of number of units, right, the small development, the lack of organic demand, you then may have to factor a slightly longer time to sell, and also to put in more marketing efforts to broadcast this development out into the wider market. Now, this is actually a fact, right? Why am I saying this? Is because I just managed to sold 1 unit over at Urban Vista that happens to be right beside the Sinaka launch over in Tanah Merah. And Urban Vista was traditionally known to be extremely hard to sell, take very, very long time to sell. But thankfully, we were able to tap on the attention that has been brought into the area thanks to Sinaka, because the developers, they spend millions of dollars on marketing. They engage entire agencies to market for them, so you won't be able to match them their efforts, right, their marketing efforts in the resale market. And so how we've managed to help our sellers do it is to tag on to the Sinaka developer launch to sell the unit. So now that is one of the concerns, and which is why one of the things I don't quite like about Blossoms by the Park, the lack of a future launch in the future. Now, some of the sub points on what I don't quite like about Blossoms by the Park. Number one, to be honest, I don't feel the quality given by the developers are the best. Number one, bedrooms are vinyl flooring. There is no marble, even though you go to the slightly more premium units, the 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, you're not going to find any marble at all. And I just think that they were a bit cheap to not even provide a washer and dryer. And sub point number 2 on what I don't quite like about Blossoms by the Park, the lack of a strong investment thesis. So what do I mean by that? So if you've been following our channel, and especially if you watch the video on Continuum and on Tembusu Grand, over there we have a very strong investment thesis that we go by this year, which is a new versus old supply, where you enter into an area that had with new supply, albeit smaller, albeit a bit more expensive in terms of the PSF. The old supply is significantly bigger in size. Now, we do see this a little bit over in the one-off area, but nowhere as strong as the District 15 or the CCR. In conclusion, what we like about Blossoms by the Park is number one is location. It being an established employment hub with perhaps the highest ratio of jobs to condominiums anywhere in Singapore, meaning that you're not going to have to worry about rentals and ticking all the right boxes of what you would traditionally consider a good place to invest in. Point number 2 is entry price as compared to other newish condos in the vicinity, and also is entry price as compared to other new launches in the OCR today. And on point number 3 is the lack of supply in District 5, ensuring that we're going to have some spillover demand from places like Clementi and Queenstown. And onto some of the points that we don't quite like about Blossoms by the Park. Point number 1, the size of the development. Coming in at slightly over 200 units, if the sell-through rate is good, you will not be able to enjoy the kind of developer price staging that a larger development will afford you. And on point number 2, the lack of upgrader and organic demand, meaning the area may be dominated by investors. Now, if you're unsure of how that's going to impact you, make sure you drop us a text and we'll run you through our investor versus owner-occupier Excel sheet. And building on to the previous 2 points would be our third point, the lack of future supply. Now, with no future launches coming in after these 2 plots, there may be a lack of attention in the one-off area, meaning you may take a longer time to sell your unit. If you like the thought process that went behind the creation of this video and review, allow me to share with you how we utilize a similar systematic and data-driven approach to help our clients achieve clarity and maximize their property moves. We call it our why, how, what framework. What we talked about today very much focuses on the outside circle, the what, right? The attributes of a particular project, location, so on and so forth. But some of the pitfalls attached to utilizing this particular approach and coming from the outside in is number 1, you may potentially be susceptible to FOMO. And especially if you go into a show flat at launch that has been specifically designed to elicit that reaction. I've seen multiple clients, multiple viewers going into a show flat, making a rash decision and subsequently regretting it. And the whole reason that happens is because the entire property plan is not well thought out first. Okay, then number 2, right? How do you actually compare the different projects and different properties that you see, right? A lot of people don't know how to do that, and they end up being more confused. The more properties they see, the more confused they get. Now we will address that as part of the second circle, the how. How do you compare properties on an apple-to-apple basis? And especially for this particular case, how do you compare Tembusu Grand that's 99 years with a freehold continuum? And how is that going to compare with Grand Diamond that is closest to the MRT? Now the answer is very, very different based on the individual. What's best for me may not be best for you. But most importantly is, how do we design the most solid property plan to get us to where we want to get to, right? We make sure we answer questions and ask ourselves questions like that, and tick the boxes and do the necessary things listed over here. And lastly, more importantly, it's the why. Right? We've shared our why, and we shared the whole rationale behind our approach in multiple videos, and I'm going to put those links in the description below or somewhere in this video so you can go and take a look, because fundamentally we see property as a means to an end, right? And we structure and we design our property plan from the end goal backwards, and how can we get there, and how can we help our clients get there in the safest, fastest way possible. So if you resonate with this approach, feel free to drop us a text and we'll be happy to help. And please don't forget to like and subscribe as you help out the channel a ton. Till next time, bye bye.